All right, so I am walking right now. It's allergy season, and I didn't take an allergy pill today, so I'm going to be breathing heavy. Plus, I am getting out of shape lately, and I am eating too many energy drinks lately. But I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera to my dogs while we walk around my property, trying to keep the coyotes at bay, and talk about the movie Adams, John Adams, that we just got done watching, or the series. So, Wolf, say hello. Cookie, say hello. Brownie's going to be making appearances in and out. He's my escape artist. Blue tick, red tick, cross. Huh, Wolf. So anyhow, first off, I was thinking about it. You know, when we first start to study the scriptures, what we tend to like the most, almost guaranteed, is the story. That's the easiest part for us to relate to, right? Over principles, over specific details of the law of Moses or ordinances or anything like that. And we know that we're feeling something special. We just know it. We can feel the Lord's hand in everything as we're studying it. And we're understanding that there's something there. Now, I believe, and I'd love to hear comments on this. People don't usually comment on my stuff. But I believe that as we become more acquainted with the scriptures, we start hearing the principal details more often. Let's stay on the bottom part, Wolf. Come on, buddy. The details of principles quite proficiently. Which principles in and of themselves are pretty strong. Cookie, you with us? Good girl. And there's the ridge. Anyhow, I think that when I would say principles, maybe perhaps details of, the Lord visiting with prophets, expecting certain behaviors from his people, expecting certain behaviors from the leaders of his people, right? Maybe some of those details, courage and morality, consequences, all that kind of stuff. The breaking up of the callings to where when you have a prophet, you still have apostles or others who serve with them, right? And anyhow, then later on, as you get more and more into it, maybe something like the details of management and specifics of wordings, and specifics of how certain ordinances are done versus others, how certain things are built, how certain things are put together. Now, that starts coming together even more. Maybe even you start noticing certain things, the specifics really don't matter, and other things, the specifics absolutely do matter. Certain things, the spirit of it matters maybe more than the specifics, you could say. Look, white man artifacts. That's what we used to call them when I worked on the trail. Huh, Cookie. And anyhow, then, if you get really advanced in your understanding of the gospel, if you ask me, like I'm pretty sure if you talk to a stake patriarch or a stake president or a bishop or someone like that, they're going to tell you beyond the principles. They're going to have the principles, and they're going to know where principles are sufficient, but they're also going to know where principles are insufficient without the details. And so anyhow, where I'm heading with this is the idea that when we study America's founding, a lot of us can really connect with the story of the Declaration of Independence. We can really connect with the stories of the founders understanding natural law, we can really connect with the Pilgrim's faith to leave a familiar territory and come out, and that God had his hand in it. We can connect then to deeper principles that administrations and managements need to be broken up. And then, as we explore it more, if we let our brains become enlightened, we start to think, but I still want to know not only the details of the Declaration of Independence, which is easier to understand if you ask me, and very, very, very important, but the details of the Constitution, which when you know the details of the Constitution, you start realizing some portions of the Constitution are almost more principle-based, but others are very much so specifics-based. So we're talking, I always call it my 7 Ps. There's more than just the 7 Ps. I've come up with like 4 additional Ps, such as procedural rules, things like that. You know, each house has the management of that kind of stuff, but those are less important to us as citizens, informed voters, influencers on the direction of our compound Republican form of government. What is more important, so we're on the bottom portion of my land here, is things like, okay, I call them the proper purposes of government, the positions of power, the manners in which the people's consent is given, right? So what kind of vote? Is it electoral college? Is it this? Is it that? Do you understand it? Or are you one of those people that's just bugged because it takes a mild amount of effort to understand it, right? Still have the flowers out, by the way. Then the procedures for exercising powers, the powers enumerated, the promises guaranteed, and the prohibitions or the prohibited powers, right? So, which prohibiting powers would only happen because, as we discovered by the Declaration of Independence, at times government leaders exercised powers that were inappropriate for them to exercise. Now, as you study the details, oh, look at that, we got the moon coming up over there. As you study the details, you will start to notice, okay, first off, our generic description of 3 branches of government is insufficient. Isn't it, Cookie? Now, Cookie's a Velcro dog. Wolf, he needs a leash. He's more, I'm pretty darn sure, we know he's half Anatolian, or half Great Pyrenees, but I'm pretty sure he's a quarter Anatolian and a quarter Aussie based on the traits of his litter mates and his own traits. Anyhow, what you find are additional 3 branches. I've pointed this out before. It's not really super cut and dry, but when you connect the dots with Article 4 and Article 5 of the Constitution, you can't help but notice that there is a what do you call it? Another branch kind of almost acknowledged there. Someone that has their own set of powers, their own set of privileges, their own definitions of how to become part of that branch, right? And that's the states. How does a state enter the union? What are states allowed to do? What powers are they allowed to participate in, right? What are their privileges? And then if you look at Article 6, you've got much more brief, principled clarifying details, but to me, an obvious new branch, which is the officers of government. The individual's officers with their individual intellectual capacity, their ability to think for themselves, their ability to refuse orders that violate their oath of office. And then, when you look at Article 7 plus the Bill of Rights, you find unavoidably another branch that's responsible for the operation of our government, and that's we the people, with our powers, our protections, our duties, our responsibilities. Now, it's only the first 5 articles, and Article 7, So really, everything but Article 6. They have specific procedures in place, I guess you could say, right? And I would say that Article 4, Section 4 is more of a backup procedure rather than a primary procedure. In other words, where you study the Constitution, where a promise is guaranteed, you've got the President's Take Care Clause, you've got that standard oath of office, and that expectation that somehow that promise is going to be delivered on, and the promises guaranteed are pretty much always protection from domestic violence, invasion, common defense, that kind of thing. If we're obsessed with procedures when it comes to those kind of things, and we write down that obsession with procedures for our enemies to be able to read it and know it, talk about like the dumbest tactical decision you can make in history. Our enemies would expose that all day long. It's an obvious. The Constitution, as you read it, there's so many backups for ways of defending ourselves. Versus when it comes to exercising powers such as weights and measures, such as immigration and naturalization, such as these sort of things, they're actually only mentioned once, and they have to go through a specific procedure. What am I getting at? I guess I'm saying graduating from the story level to the principle level to the details level, and finding that sometimes in the details there still are just principles, right? Principles that are guaranteed, that need to be carried out without detailed procedures. And our enemy needs to know that. Our enemy needs to know that not everything we do as a constitutional compound republic as we are is reliant on a very specific procedure. Now, the people that are managed internally, they should, the overwhelming majority of what's exercised, go ahead and turn it back to me, that should be exercised through very specific procedures by way of very specific sets and rules. Powers prohibited versus powers enumerated. It's the promises guaranteed. Those are the ones where if something is guaranteed, it is not reliant on the specifics of the procedure, okay? And so, anyhow, the same way you graduate when you read your scriptures from the storybook level to the principles level to the details level, then to the big picture between where principles versus details all come together. I would invite everybody to do that with American history. And again, this is inspired by watching the John Adams series. Amy and I looked up where the, if you're going to watch it, you guys, it was made by HBO. There's a couple points where the husband will want to be available to fast to have the wife cover her eyes and look at the timer. And then there's a couple points where the wife will want to be available to have the husband cover his eyes, which fortunately we looked that up on IMDb. You can find it right there. They tell you the time spot where it happens. And then just, it's interesting. It just focuses on the story side almost completely. But so interesting, so nice. So we need that level. We do need that level. We just need the higher level sooner or later, you guys. So thanks again for listening. Wolf says thanks. Cookie says thanks. Brownie ditch Dusty keeps running back and forth. He's a crazy hound. All right, have a happy Sunday, guys. See ya.